Hi, everyone, and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're at in the world. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mark Becker, and this is a guide to growing your Canadian peer-to-peer fundraising. If you have any questions, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to enter those in the chat. Please enter those as you're thinking of them. We'll have definitely time for questions at the end, and we'll attempt to answer them as we go as well. But please ask those as you're thinking of them, and we'll be happy to answer your questions along the way and at the end. Everybody else is going to be on mute except for us panelists. So let's go ahead and kick off and start with introductions. 1 second here. Jayson, you want to start?
Yeah, for sure. Hello to everybody that's out there. My name is Jayson Ursulak. I work with an organization called the Wellspring Foundation for Education. And what we try to do there is seek justice, worth, and dignity for all that we engage with, as we're showing the love of Jesus by empowering a new generation through the development of quality education in Africa. So we focus primarily right now on Rwanda, but are looking to expand that into East Africa and around as well. So I've been working in the nonprofit sector since 2005. And at Wellspring, I'm primarily overseeing communications, but looking at our web properties, online marketing, analysis, those kinds of things. So that's me.
Great. Thanks, Jayson. Oh, why do I keep on trying to end the webinar? Let's not do that. All right, Beth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bethany Peirson. I'm the events manager for Good Shepherd Centers in Hamilton. Good Shepherd is Hamilton's largest social services agency. We have a variety of shelters. We have a hospice and schools as well. Before coming to Good Shepherd, I was with the Canadian Cancer Society working on the Relay for Life program.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. Amanda.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Stanton. I am the manager of events and partnerships with Parkinson Canada. Parkinson Canada is the national voice of Canadians living with Parkinson's disease. We provide education and services to support people with Parkinson's disease, their families, and their health professionals. We fund innovative research to search for better treatment and a cure for Parkinson's. And we advocate with all levels of government on issues important to the Parkinson's community. I joined the team in 2008 in community development. I worked with support groups and Parkinson's awareness and dabbled a little in fundraising. And then I eventually transitioned into my current role where I contribute to the strategy of our events with a primary focus on Superwalk, which is our largest national P2P event.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you all three for joining and sharing your experiences with us. Really appreciate it, and thank all of you for dialing in and listening in today. And I hope you get some great insights from this group of folks. And I want to go ahead and say last and least, since I am the vendor involved. I'm Mark Becker, founding partner of Cathexis Partners. Started the company a little over 11 years ago now. We help organizations really find the technology that they need and maximize it. And as it relates to today's discussion, we've implemented literally hundreds of organizations on TeamRaiser and supporting peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns, both physical events, virtual campaigns, really all different types. And we've put out several different resources. Feel free to check any of those out on our website, cathexispartners.com/resources. A lot around peer-to-peer fundraising and general online fundraising. So really looking forward to our discussion today. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First of all, we're going to kind of talk about more of your standard events, like a walk or a run or a bike ride, or an event might be, a stair climb. It might be over the edge type of things where you're rappelling. It might be climbing up a mountain. Whatever it is, let's first kind of talk about different types of physical event campaigns where there's actually a get-together on the day, and what features are important to those types of campaigns. Obviously, registration is really important, right? You might have a registration fee, you might not, but it's really important to be able to highlight and have an easy flow for registration, as well as being able to communicate information about the event date, logistical information. But you really want to make sure the process of registration is as seamless, as easy as possible, and also looks good on both handheld devices, a cell phone, as well as on desktops, because obviously more and more folks are accessing the web these days via their phone, so you want to make sure everything's very responsive and reacts well on a mobile device. So TeamRaiser does allow for that streamlined functionality. It also allows for being able to log in using social media credentials like Facebook or LinkedIn or Google accounts to log in and use those credentials. A nice thing you can also do is up to you. You can offer up discount codes if you have a registration fee. Again, a registration fee isn't required, and you can have different types of registrations. For example, in this case, adult or youth. You can offer up discount codes, which will usually help promote early registration. And the earlier you can get folks to register, obviously, the more likely they are to be able to read more of your emails along the way that help them with fundraising tips. So get them to register earlier, possibly offer up an earlier bird discount, and get that folks kind of sharing that amongst themselves to get going. You can also have them set up a fundraising goal. You can have a suggested fundraising goal, and they can edit that. You can offer up required fundraising minimums if you're doing a certain type of event that requires a high amount of production. You might want to ensure that people fundraise at least X amount if you don't charge a really high registration fee. So you can make a required fundraising goal or just a suggested one. Also a nice feature during registration is something you see on this screenshot, the ability to add an additional gift at time of registration. So someone could register and kind of kickstart their fundraising by also donating $50. So their fundraising page will already show the $85 total or just $50. Another setting you as the organization get to decide is whether or not the registration fees count towards somebody's fundraising minimum. So these are all great features that are completely configurable by you, depending on your specific needs. And we've seen them all, I think. Well, there's always something new coming out, but yeah, it's a lot of flexibility and a lot of options. In addition, during the registration flow, to your standard questions like name and email address, you can ask additional questions. If it's a timed event, you might be doing race bibs, t-shirt sizes if you're giving out free t-shirts, if they have a connection to the cause, or if they're survivors and you're going to do something special for survivors, that type of thing. And again, if they're doing a timed event, you might want to know what their age is to put them in different categories. Any of these questions you can ask in custom questions. You can make them required or optional. It's always a bit of a kind of a line you want to make sure you're walking between asking enough questions to get everything you need to know about them without asking too many and feeling intrusive or potentially having a barrier to registration. So ask all the information you need, but just the information you need, right? Then once you get them registered, the Participant Center gives them a great place for the organization to communicate to the participants. So in here on this page, this is highly customizable. I'm going to show you a more custom one. This is kind of the out-of-the-box option that really lays out what the next step should be, like set up your personal page, update, send some email addresses, update your address book, thank donors once they've donated to you, that type of thing. So this is kind of the basic look, and here's a highly customized participant center. All the same features, just nicely stylized, makes it really clean, easy for folks to figure out what their next steps are, what they're, and gives them some nice, easy to use tools to fundraise on your behalf. We're going to show you some more examples here in a second. And then again, you can have sample suggested messages set up so that when the participants register, they can, email their friends and family, and instead of starting from kind of a blank piece of paper or a blank screen with the cursor flashing at them, you can have some suggested messages that they can just conditionalize or customize and edit to send their own message. But it just helps them versus having to start from scratch with a blank email. So I think that's really a great feature. You can allow them to basically update their personal page, send their own, upload an image, set up a personal URL so that for their personal page, so they can share it on social media and people can get to it that much easier. As you can see in this example, the default is a bit lengthy, but it's okay. I mean, if it's in an email, it'll just be a clickable link, but you can set up a kind of a vanity or personal URL and kind of replace all this back end with your first and last name or whatever you want to have on there. Same thing with team pages. And then all this text is editable using a nice little WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get editor. And then you can preview it, upload images or videos, and share that out. There's an example of one here with somebody uploading pictures of their dogs, sending their message, and they've already got some. Their goal is $3,000. They've raised $2,020. So they're 60%, 67% of goal. It has the honor roll, and you can see that people have the option to either have their name display or listed anonymously if they don't want to share that. And they also get achievement badges along the way. Once they've received their first donation, they got this one, and they got another one for raising $1,500. And these are all configurable, both the levels, some of the actions, and also the images. Had a question here. How did each org determine whether or not to charge a registration fee? I think that's going to be a great question I'm going to throw that one out to the panel. Do you, feel free, any of you answer, do you charge a registration fee for your events or not? And what was the thinking behind that?
So it's Amanda here. For SuperWalk, for SuperWalk, we do not charge a registration fee, but we do have a suggested minimum fundraising level of $50 to receive an event day t-shirt. So we really focus in on the community aspect of it and encouraging people to fundraise and to self-pledge. So no registration fee, but that $50 minimum suggested to cover the t-shirt on walk day.
Awesome. And Beth, I think you were going to say something?
I was just going to say our event is, we target children to register for it, so we did not charge a registration fee, just so there was no barrier for parents to register their kids.
Totally makes sense. How about you, Jayson? Anything to add?
Yeah, the Lake to Lake's kind of a niche cycling event. So we do 200 kilometers over 2 days, stay overnight at a Bible camp on a lake. And so obviously there's a number of costs involved in running that event. So we do have a registration fee. Depending on when they register, early bird rate gets them about $200 is what that cost would be. But that covers everything. Essentially, the rider hops on a bike, they get a bag of swag, and then based on fundraising levels, as you'll see when we get into our portion, they'll receive different additional swag. So there are a number of costs that we have involved in running that, going everywhere from permits and staying at locations and renting facilities for rest stops. But yeah, essentially riders hop on a bike, and then when they arrive at camp, their stuff's in their room, they get a massage. There's a number of things that happen. So it's a bit more niche.
Right.
So you do charge a fee.
That's nice. Yeah, and they got a lot of costs to cover there. Yeah, great question, and I love the variety of the campaigns. So perfect. All right, let's talk about donations then, and supporting either the the overall campaign. Someone can donate directly to the campaign if they want, or they can support a team if you have teams enabled and turn on team fundraising. It's simply clicking a button to enable that, and is on by default. So it's more like disabling it if you don't want to, and then, or you can individually, support an individual participant. So you can start search for participants. They can share their personal pages with you, and then if if they haven't sent that, you can just find a campaign and search for their names. And then you choose whether or not you want to make the gift anonymously, give the recognition name, if you want to make it something different than your own name, and you can even include a personal note that the participant will see in their participant center, along with the donation transaction information. It doesn't get displayed to the entire public, just a personal note of inspiration or support or whatever you want to put in there. And you can set up giving levels, and you can, kind of show where that money goes to, that type of thing. And of course, it does support Canadian tax receipting, so you're all covered there according to Canadian laws. So that's all great as well. Let's go into our first example here. Jayson, you want to tell us more about the ride?
Yeah, for sure. So started a little bit there with answering that question, but essentially it's a non-competitive ride where people will go over 200 kilometers over a couple of days from one lake in the interior of British Columbia to another lake and then back again. And so we've been, the Lake to Lake has been, we just completed our 10th ride. So it's 9 years, but 10 rides. And I don't even know the amount of money that's been raised. This year was our most successful fundraising year. So there's a little bit in the campaign progress in the bottom right of that screenshot where $123,000 was raised this year. And that's just from riders fundraising through their friends and family and the P2P side of things. Now, on top of that, obviously I mentioned we do have registration fees, and we did have some sponsorships of the ride as well. So the actual total income for the ride was a bit more. So, over the 10 years, we're just over $1 million that's been raised to help provide quality education to Rwandan students through the Wellspring Foundation. So we've branded this ride the Lake to Lake for obvious reasons. We're riding from lake to lake. Now, I mentioned earlier that it's kind of a niche event in that it's a 2-day thing over the course of a weekend, and not everyone's going to hop on a bike and ride that far because they don't think they can do it. But our ride is fully supported. And as I mentioned earlier, someone can show up. You see maybe actually in that screenshot, one of the guys in the front there is on almost a mountain bike. People have ridden it. We had a guy ride it on e-bike this year. So I don't know if that's actually really riding. Yeah, do it on old school style mountain bikes. And essentially we have a sweeper truck. And so if people get tired, they can hop in for a ride to the next rest stop. There's 4 rest stops each day. So really, essentially they're going about 25, 30 kilometers before they hit a rest stop where they get, food, water, snacks, all that kind of stuff. And so it's been a wonderful event just in building a community around it. There's one fella, he retired from being a bus driver here in the Okanagan region in 2010 and had heard about this ride. It was the first year we were getting it going, and he rode, and he's ridden every single year. And that first year that he rode, he wasn't sure he could do it. He was on an old style commuter kind of hybrid bike, but got through it. And that was motivation for him to get himself fit, and he's continued to ride. He now has a road bike and all the gear, like some of the people in that picture now. And yeah, it's been really awesome. So there's been quite a community that's developed around it. Now, we over the 2 days, that evening when we have them all together at the camp, we also offer a presentation where we talk a little bit about Wellspring, what we're doing. We give out swag. We have sponsors that give us stuff, and this year there were too many things to give away, so some people got more than one thing, whether that's like t-shirts or gift certificates to local businesses. We had a brew pub give us a bunch of beer to hand out. There was a number of, and so And people also just building that sense of community, they start to realize, that I'm riding this 220 kilometers, but it's not just me riding. Every pedal I'm pushing is helping to impact the education of a child, across the world. And so it's been really neat. We'll sometimes show some of our promotional films. Our CEO will speak, and staff are there for people to just engage with. And Ed has ridden every single year, but there are other people who have ridden 9 out of the 10 years, 8, there's a lot of people that return to do it. Each year, we probably get between 80 to 100 riders. But over the course of the event, we've had, almost 500 people have ridden it. We just haven't had them all there together for various reasons. And so, yeah, maybe I can
What a
talk
great way to
little bit
share. Yeah, what a great way to share about the mission and tying it all together, overnight. And yeah, what a great problem to have. Everybody gets more than one thing because you have so many good sponsors and people that have given you stuff. So that's awesome. I'm gonna move to the second page if you want to talk a bit about the personal and team pages. I know we talked a bit about some of the functionality that you think was kind of helpful, and I think this kind of highlights some of that if you want to speak to it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to go back maybe to the beginning of the ride, starting with how we got going. We had a website built in WordPress, and I know enough to get myself in trouble when I'm doing stuff. So we actually initially started using just manual pages for people. So where I want to say that first year we only had about 30 people ride. So I was personally updating pages for people. We sent out, forms for them to fill out. So I got their name. They would send me a photo. I'd get what they want to put up in writing. And then as donations came in, I was updating it. So it looked like it was this slick system, but it wasn't. We then moved on. Yeah. It's
a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. So that was, we were chatting, ahead of the call about, as much as can be automated, puts power in people's hands, and it's really, really helpful. So it was really kind of centric around Jayson in the beginning. We then moved on to a different platform, which was geared specifically to cycling events, which was great. But then, as we'll talk a little bit later on, we had this, we wanted people to be able to do it yourself fundraising, and it was really cycle themed. So we moved on from that. We then transitioned to another platform. That was great. It was just kind of expensive. I don't know if we're naming names in the webinar, but
it's fine. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we moved on to we moved on to Classy, which was fantastic, really intuitive, but quite expensive. And being a Canadian organization, there was a little bit of hiccups in the beginning about issuing tax receipts. We then also do have some US donors, and then if we wanted to accept Canadian funds and US funds and have it displayed the same way, and we wanted to keep, but we also wanted to keep, our US funds separately, because when we send funds to Rwanda, we get, exchange rate goes kind of crazy because we've got to send in US dollars, and that's just too much information maybe for this, but it was just a bit clunky. And so the product itself was fantastic, but it just wasn't working for us as a Canadian organization. And so then we were using a particular donor database, and we had someone come in and tweak some stuff to customize it, where we started creating our own giving pages that were automated right into our database, but ran into some hiccups there as well. So in a transition away from that, we started to look at TeamRaiser. And I think, if I'm right, at the time when we were making the decision, I think 7 out of the top 10 fundraising events in Canada were using TeamRaiser. And so we started to take a long, hard look at that. So we've just 1 year into using it, which I did mention was our most successful year as well. I don't know if that was because of TeamRaiser or because more riders or whatever else, but I really have to extend thanks to our riders, because as you've obviously guessed, over 10 years, we've jumped through a number of systems. And this year I had the least amount of issue with people needing help for different things. And so what we did as we got our TeamRaiser set up, and Cathexis helped us out, Andrea from Cathexis was just amazing. When we were in testing stage, I got a hold of riders who had issues in the past, and riders who really liked the systems in the past, and I got them to test it for us, and they gave us a lot of feedback, and we were able to tweak things and get things to a place that it was working. It wasn't, we still ran into a few issues here and there, but for the most part, it worked well. And I think some of those things will come up maybe later on as we're talking now. All that to jump into the actual personal fundraising pages. So what we did, we really, as Mark had mentioned earlier, we had what we called canned messages. So when someone set up a donation page, we had text in there already that talked about the mission of Wellspring. There was call to actions in it. There was the value proposition was right into that. So we had that ready, but people could customize their pages. So the one on the left, that person's actually kind of tweaked that all to make it their own. Now, one of the things that's also happened out of people writing in the event is they get engaged with Wellspring, and so a lot of them actually have been on trips with us to see the work as well. So people would get in and personalize things. We did customize some achievements as well, where we had levels. So we had participant milestones for individuals. So someone that would register and pay their event registration fee, if they choose to fundraise for us and they hit certain targets, they got things back. So if they hit $750, they were given a free cycling jersey that was branded for the event. If they hit $1,500, they got the jersey, plus we refunded their registration fee, really trying to encourage people to raise funds for our work. What TeamRaiser allowed us to do, though, was set up these milestones. So we started off by having a 10th anniversary milestone. So if they raised $250, that we put explanations on it. $250 been raised, that helps decrease school dropout rates. We had a sunshine milestone, and we talk about helping create these vibrant classrooms if someone raised $500. If they raised $750, they got their free jersey, but they're also helping us improve exam results for students in classrooms in Rwanda. $1,000 helped to raise the standard of learning in schools, and we called that the breakaway milestone. We had icons for all of these. We had a community engagement milestone of $1,250, and then the free ride milestone, which helps create sustainable change in classrooms if they raise $1,500. We did the same on the right. I think in the slides there is one of the team pages, and we had milestones for teams as well. Now for teams, they got off a little bit easier. If they hit $5,000, they got a free ride. So 4 people to a team, we limited it to that. But if they hit $5,000, everyone on the team got a free ride and plus their jersey. So the first one was a team is team milestone, which that's a little catchphrase that we have at Wellspring. We have a team in Rwanda, a team in Canada, and we're always talking about team is team. There's no us and them kind of thing, and just that's a little catchphrase. So we called this team is team milestone if they raised $2,500, which helped equip teachers to become the best educators they could be. Better together. Milestone was the $5,000, where we talk about empowering parents to support their school's education, and then the community impact, where we focus in on developing leaders to inspire transformation of $7,500. Now, I'm rambling a little bit here, but all of those things, those milestones were worded in a way that really dovetailed within everything we talk about at Wellspring with what partnership helps enable happen in Rwanda. So we just made it fit with our work in using those milestones.
That's awesome.
So, yeah,
That's great.
I can ramble. So
No, it's good. It's all very, and I like how it all ties back to the mission, right? And I also see that the add this feature is in here to just make it really super easy for folks to share their pages with others, right?
Yeah, that
Do you
was
kind of
actually
feedback on that?
Yeah, that was actually a key thing for us. So, the previous version of the ride, the previous year of the ride, we ran with an in-house system, and we just ran into a lot of issues with people trying to share their pages. And that was, completely on our end, but it was just really clunky. It kept showing if someone wanted to share their personal page, even though we had vanity URLs, it wouldn't pull their picture, it wouldn't pull their write-up, it wouldn't pull the title of their page. It kept doing just the main event stuff. And so, we had to create a workaround where they could share their page. Whereas now with, we had to add this plugin in, it pulled all the correct information. And when they were sharing across places like Facebook, which was, one of the primary places where funding came in from, right? So that was huge for writers, and they really appreciated that it actually worked properly this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, terrific. All right. Thanks for sharing. All right. Let's hear a little bit about Superwalk.
Sure. So Super Walk, it's Parkinson Canada's largest national event. It takes place each September in about 80 communities across the country, and it's a peer-to-peer fundraising walk. Some of our walks are staff-driven, but the majority are actually run by local volunteer coordinators and committees, and some are even hosted by local Parkinson's support groups. So it's very grassroots. Each event looks a little bit different, but our marketing, our communications, and stewardship is really consistent across the country. So since we're talking about growing our P2P events today, I thought I'd talk about some aspects of our online participant experience, which have really contributed to the growth of our events, and specifically Super Walk over the past few years. So our marketing campaign focuses on pushing out segmented, targeted, and personalized content. And when we're creating this content, we really focus in on 5 key areas with our participants. And that's demonstrated fundraising capacity. So if they are a returning successful fundraiser, anticipated fundraising capacity. So if they've set a high goal, if, other indicators like making a self-pledge, if they've made a self-pledge, if they use the participant center email tool, or in our case, those with Parkinson's disease. These are all behaviors that our data shows belong to our most successful fundraisers. Their connection to cause. So we ask their connection to our cause. They can identify as having Parkinson's disease, or a care partner, or a grandchild of someone with Parkinson's. Their interest area in our mission. So we have 3 main streams, which is research, advocacy, and support. And we ask them to indicate their primary interest. And years participated. So if they're a new or a returning participant, and how many years they've been involved in our walk. And Mark kind of touched on this a few slides back. This is all information we gather from the online registration process. So we've added a few of these questions just to gather some of this information to help us create some more meaningful content. So we use 5 channels for our communication: phone, mail, email, digital advertising, and autoresponders, which is what I will focus in on today. We just flip over to the next slide. Can talk a little bit about our milestones and badges and the autoresponders tied to those. So on the front end of our website, you'll see on the left, we have a section, we saw it earlier a few slides back in another event in the achievements, we call them badges. So we have a section dedicated to the badges. Some are tied directly to fundraising success, and others are achieved by updating a personal page, or joining or starting a team, and using the participant center email tool. So both fundraising and behavior badges. And then speaking of these milestones, we actually have a number of autoresponders. Well, we have autoresponders tied to each one. And just to walk it back a little bit, we recognize 2 levels of fundraisers. We have superstar walkers who raise $1,000 or more, and Superstar Supreme walkers who raise $2,500 or more. So we really focus in on those 2 levels. So when a walker hits that milestone of either 500, 1,000, 2,500, and 5,000, an autoresponder is triggered with a thank you, some coaching to keep going with their fundraising, and also an explanation of how their fundraising is contributing to the impact. So you'll see here on the right that we tie the $5,000 milestone autoresponder. So we tie their $5,000 fundraising to 6 weeks funding of a research grant. So really simple, but it gives our participants like a tangible result coming out of their fundraising efforts. And at the same time, actually, an admin notification is triggered, so our staff can follow up accordingly. So, for example, at the $1,000 level, the participant will receive their autoresponder. We receive a notification about that person, and then we can send them out a handwritten card and welcoming them to our Superstar Club and congratulating them and encouraging them to keep going.
I love these badges. Do you get a lot of feedback or feel like you're seeing a lot of activity based on those? It seems like they'd be pretty productive.
Yeah, so we've really built on it over the years. Now, we added this a few years back. I'm sure most people remember when gamification was the real buzzword in the P2P space, right? So we added this and started with a few, and we've really built from there. And we feel people really get excited about it, about earning their badges and seeing, what level and what other things they can add to their list. One thing we haven't figured out yet, which would be great to hear what others have to say about it too, but is how to recognize it on walk day. It would be really neat for us to have sort of some way to recognize these achievements on walk day, but we just haven't got there yet. But at least it lives online and people really seem to respond to it.
Yeah, we've seen some clients get stickers or different colored lanyards to represent, kind of bring those badges to life on event. Different colored beads, necklaces, that type of thing. Kind of whatever might work if you're kind of color coding them, that type of thing.
Yes, very cool. Okay, we'll have to bring that back to the team. Thanks, Mark.
I like these though. These are awesome.
Great, thanks. Okay, so delving a little deeper, I guess, into our autoresponders. So our goal here is to really is to efficiently get our messaging out, of course, to our participants, but also have an element of personalization to it. So it doesn't look like a form letter, even though it is a form letter. So our follow-up autoresponders are usually prompting a specific action. So encouraging people to update their personal page, encouraging them to make a self-pledge or to use the participant center email tool. And so for the participants that have already taken these actions, we can congratulate them and give them prompts to continue and to go even further. So on the topic of personalization, we really try to include meaningful content whenever possible as well. So stories that people can really connect with. On the right, you'll see one of our emails that was actually crafted to look like a personal note from Mary here. Mary has Parkinson's and her husband, John, pictured, is her care partner. Mary talks about their personal journey with Parkinson's disease and how their involvement with Superwalk has been such a positive experience. So by asking that connection to cause during registration, we can determine which participants have Parkinson's disease and who their care partners are, and then we can send them this specific note, which is, most likely going to resonate with them more than just like a general rah, thanks for fundraising, keep going type of email, right? So similarly, we would send different messages to say children of people with Parkinson's or their grandchildren, etc. Another way we use conditional content to personalize is utilizing our knowledge of our participants' area of interest, which I mentioned before. So we use this in a variety of ways in autoresponders for reaching a percentage of their goal or for reaching a specific milestone. So for example, if someone declares they are most interested in research, in one of their milestone autoresponders, we can pull in an impact paragraph on research. And then that would be replaced with a paragraph on our latest advocacy efforts for those participants that had indicated advocacy as their number one interest. So they're really getting content that's meaningful to them and the interest that they declared as most important to them. Another simple example of personalization is just using the number of years the person has participated. So our registration and follow-up autoresponders are different for a first year. Which would be very focused on, thanks for joining this community, letting them know what to expect, coaching them on how to fundraise and how to use the email tool, as opposed to maybe a second year participant, which is focusing on welcoming them back, communicating the impact that they had in the previous year, how their fundraising contributed to the impact, and then coaching them on how to build on their fundraising experience from the year before.
That's awesome. And I think there was a question. Yeah, there was a question from the audience. I think you kind of addressed it, but the question was, did you have different strategies for different participant demographics? And it sounds like it was through the conditionalization and anything else that you did to kind of focus on different personas or different groups?
Yeah, definitely. So the one I mentioned about Mary, but we also, we try to change our tone up a little bit as well. So using demographic information will, speak to the millennials different than the boomers, as I'm sure most of you are doing. And, really do focus in on those two examples that I mentioned, the areas of interest and their connection to the cause. And really just pull in what we can and hopefully giving them that content that's more meaningful for them.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Thanks. All right, so let's shift focus a little bit now to kind of DIY, do it yourself, or virtual or crowdfunding campaigns. There's a lot of different. In fact, when I started putting together an outline for this session, I was going to do kind of break it up into DIY versus third-party events. But basically, I'm going to clump these all into kind of virtual campaigns, right? There's not a physical event that the organization's doing. Your participants might have a house party or might have a birthday party or a wedding or host whatever. But a lemonade stand like we're going to see here from Beth in a moment. But you as the organization, you're not hosting the event. You're not producing it. So that's what we're talking about with kind of do-it-yourself type of campaigns. And this is a screenshot from one of our clients that's been we originally deployed this, I want to say, about 10 years ago now for WaterAid Canada. And I think it's just really held up through the years. In fact, they did a rebranding of their organization, but that's the only thing that's changed on this campaign because it just looks stellar. Even today, it's a nice, clean way to allow folks to fundraise for the cause. And this is still within all these examples we're showing you are within TeamRaiser, and just shows you kind of the flexibility and the versatility of ways that you can have folks fundraise for your campaign. And these types of campaigns are really popular. And even though people can fundraise for whatever reason they want to for your organization, a lot of organizations will kind of put some teaser ideas out there, like maybe you're going to do a 5K, or a walk or a run, so you'll fundraise for them. Maybe it's your birthday. Instead of getting gifts, you're gonna put up a page, or a holiday, or maybe you're getting married, or just workplace giving, and then there's kind of a general my fundraiser, just kind of some teasers out there to give people some ideas on the different types of ways that they can fundraise. At the end of the day, it's all about setting up a personal page and reaching out to their contacts. Amanda, you want to speak to your DIY campaign?
Yeah, sure. So it looks like it's similar to that WaterAid event that we just saw on the last slide, but our DIY program is called Fundraising Your Way. And it was created to give participants the feeling of a custom and personalized fundraising experience. So when you're visiting the site, you'll see a number of options. You'll see them on the bottom there. We call them hubs for different types of events. So these are actually set up as 6 individual TeamRaisers with multiple participant types in each, which actually allows us to customize the experience even further. So you'll see the active hub there on the left. So within that hub, a participant can actually identify as a walker, a runner, a cyclist, or maybe even an endurance event participant. And that allows us to communicate to them in a way that fits the nature of their event, because, you're not going to, speak to a walker the same way you would as an endurance event participant, because their events are, so different. And then this also gives them access to relevant tools to support their event as well. So on the next page, here they are. So each hub comes with a suite of tools. So everything that a participant will need for their planning process, for day of and post-event. This works really well because the participant can use these templates and create whatever they want quickly and easily. But for our team, it's a huge time saver because, a lot of time spent creating these, but then we can, they're living here on the site, and then the participants can just pull what they need.
That's so great. So, giving those tools to do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it works really, really well. And like I said, very huge time saver for our team. Like, for example, we appreciate, of course, all of our DIY events, but I'm sure all of you can agree, like the $50 bake sale should require a little less attention than, say, the $10,000 golf tournament. So using this model here, the bake sale still has everything they need to run their event successfully. But we can invest our time on the events with, more significant goals and more complex needs. So the next slide actually shows a few examples of the tools we have. We have, certificates and posters, checklists, basically everything that you would expect in an event kit. One thing to note is that they all have fillable fields, which really ensures that the promotion and the public-facing content stays on brand. And then it allows users to customize to their liking with, little to no staff time required to complete.
Nice.
On the Yeah, on the next slide, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about one of our more significant DIY events here. It's Rudy's Run for Parkinson's. This started as an event for the organizers' immediate friends and family, which is going to be, a small family event, but they saw some really early success and decided they really wanted to grow it and branch it out into the community. So they set a really ambitious goal, and we were prepared to invest some time ourselves and energy to customize their events even further. So they really wanted a more personalized online experience for their event rather than just the typical participation page you would see, or participant page you would see in Fundraising Your Way in TeamRaiser. So what we did, instead of registering through the Active Hub as they typically would, we actually copied one of our other child events and changed the name of that newly copied TeamRaiser to Rudy's Run. Instead of using our standard autoresponder content, we asked actually the event organizers to review the content and make some modest edits just to personalize it a little further. They had created their own logo that you'll see here, so we actually changed the header on the page using some conditional code in PageWrapper to give them that custom header you see there, which made them really happy because it created the illusion of having created this fully custom site. And we were thrilled because it still functioned within our overall Fundraising Your Way blueprint.
Nice. And it probably didn't take your team very long to set up since you already kind of had a blueprint, right?
Exactly. Just copied it over and then made some modest edits from there.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Jayson, you want to speak to your kind of DIY fundraising historically and what you're looking to do moving forward? You want me to play this first, or you want to speak to it first?
Yeah, maybe I'll chat a bit before. First of all, I'm blown away by Amanda and what you guys are doing at Parkinson's. I think I mentioned earlier we're kind of new to TeamRaiser, and just to see how well thought out, it's just great. It's so good. We are in a place where we're also wanting that do-it-yourself kind of fundraising to happen for people and put tools in their hands. And so on older systems, when we were at Classy, that was pretty simple for us to do. When we transitioned to do it in-house, we tabled it. But a number of years ago, we put together this film, which will be shown here in just a minute, to try and encourage people to do things. So we've had people do a number of different things for us. Birthdays, one. They've had curling bonspiels. A fellow walked the Camino in Spain. A guy's ridden his motorcycle from Cape Town to Kigali in Rwanda. A group of gals climbed 5 mountains in a week. Local hikes in the Vancouver area of British Columbia. So we just wanted to kind of encourage that. So people have been doing those kinds of things for us, but we've been really hands-on in having to take care of it. And so we aren't ready to launch ours yet. We did have it up and going in an older system, but I'm just getting used to TeamRaiser and wanting to set things up. So I loved what Amanda's shown us, how Parkinson's has set theirs up. But this is the film that we put together to encourage that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if this comes through on a sound.
Wellspring. By doing the things that you love, you could do this, or even this. You don't have to do this, but you could. Because when you do something, it changes everything. Find out how you can help by joining us at Wellspring.ngo/fundraise.
Yeah, so I think that's awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the hope was that people would see that, kind of like what Amanda had said. There's some upfront work for us as a team to get things set up so that the tools are in people's hands, but that then they could just go, it's not set it and forget it, but it's, kind of, I think Mark even touched on that with an earlier event you showed there as well, that we could spend some time getting things set up in a way where people could go in, choose to do what they want to do, get a page set up, have those targeted emails going back to them, encouraging them, giving them almost like those event kind of kits, so that they had everything that they needed to do it with little to no staff time involved, apart from the initial setup. Obviously, if they need help with different things, we'd be there to help them out. But as much as we could put in their hands so that it actually really was kind of do it yourself, And so, yeah.
Awesome stuff. All right. Oops, next slide, I think. Here we go. All right, Beth.
Okay, so at Good Shepherd, they have traditionally not done any peer-to-peer events. I wanted, when I came from my Relay for Life background, I wanted to bring that here and try something, because one of the problems we have here is that our donor group is quite a bit older than the average. We're a Catholic organization, and we don't have a lot of new donors coming on board, so that's something we're always working on. So we did things a little bit differently. We had two goals with this event. The first goal was to test the market for another peer-to-peer fundraiser, because it is pretty crowded in Hamilton. The other thing we wanted to do was we were looking at it as an acquisition. So we chose to target kids because we thought it would be a different way to speak to their parents. So we put this event together. So the whole goal of it is that parents mostly, sign up their kids on the website. The kids host a lemonade stand, and they raise a little bit of money, and then they come in one day to our drop-off party and drop off the money that they raise. They also have a virtual lemonade stand, which is their participant center, which is where most of the money came from. So their stands actually didn't raise a lot of money at all, which is what we expected. But the grandparents and the parents online are where most of the money came from. We also did some cool tools that people really liked. So we gave the parents tools that were, how to talk to your kids about what they're fundraising for. And in that way, we were able to educate the parents as well on what we do here. And then at our drop-off party, we had like bouncy castles and cotton candy and all that kind of stuff. So the kids were excited. But we actually hosted it right outside one of our shelters so that the parents could come and see, physically where our buildings are and that kind of thing. So in our first year, we raised $11,000, which isn't a lot. But we basically, it was almost a DIY campaign. So we put up all of the things that anyone would need online, and we just kind of let the kids and the parents run with it, just as a test to really see what would happen without us interfering too much. And they did pretty well. So we only had 186 kids register at 30 lemonade stands, and they were able to raise $11,000. And that was with pretty much no real effort on our part. So that was a good learning experience. And now we have big plans for what we're going to do this year as far as using the badges and the autoresponders and doing some coaching calls and that kind of thing.
I love a lot about this campaign. I mean, first of all, it's really colorful and great imagery, right? And nice and playful and yeah, great visual. But also love the fact that you come in with this very modest goal. It's your first year. You're just kind of testing the waters, and you reached your goal. As modest as it was, and it's a success. And I think here's an example of one of the personal pages. I don't know if you had anything else to add there, but I just thought it was a great little picture of Julia's lemonade stand.
Yeah, so Julia's actually our chief fundraising officer, her granddaughter. So that's where this whole idea came from. Julia's been hosting a lemonade stand in Toronto for years, and she would always raise a couple $100, and it was very exciting when she would come in and drop off her money, and we would all make a big deal. And I just kind of thought, she's so into it. Her parents are so proud of what she's doing. It's getting the word out there about what we do here. And so we sort of went off of that. And you can see on her personal page, Julia raised almost $2,500 this year because donations were coming in from, her dad works at BMO and those kind of things. So it really has nothing to do with the lemonade stand.
No, I think it's terrific though. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone. So time for questions, just a few minutes here. So opening up for questions, so feel free to drop those in the chat. Happy to answer those. We do have a couple here already. The first one is, was there any one particular channel any of you, the orgs, found best to motivate people to want to do a DIY event? Was it social media? Was it email, direct mail, at other events? Is it kind of a stew of a bunch of different channels? Jayson, I know you're not currently, doing one, but what have you found historically kind of worked?
Yeah, so that film that we watched there just now, that marketplace that we put together. We actually launched that at our gala. So we do a gala dinner in May every year. And that was kind of the kickoff to really promote it, because we had people do some things, and we thought, why don't we put something in place where they could now come, choose, and go. So we showed that event at our gala, and then on our gala brochure, so it's a multi-page little fancy square booklet kind of thing. At the end, where we had the option to give, in our call to action, we also had a tear off where they could donate their birthday as a quick, easy step. And so we kind of launched it there. Obviously, we had that video up on YouTube. It gets shared at times across our social channels as well. And so right now, as we are building out the P2P side, the DIY side in TeamRaiser, the fundraise URL just redirects to a page where someone can just give their birthday for now, and we would set up a manual page for them, but we use it across our social channels. We did launch at events, and then we remind people every so often at different events, physical events, where people would come to, about donating their birthday, because everyone has one, right? And who needs more stuff? So
nice. And Beth, being your first year, what did you any kind of channel specifically kind of jump out at you, or anything you're really looking forward to doing more of next year?
We tracked where all of our participants were coming from for Lemonade Stand Day, and 44% of them came from a Facebook ad that was a video that we created. And it was just a really simple little video. Yeah, another 30% was from word of mouth. So probably likely a lot of people who were signing up from the Facebook ad were then getting their friends to sign up as well.
As much as I dislike Facebook, you can't ignore them. It just is the nature of the beast right now, and it works. So yeah, that's interesting to hear. Good. Amanda, anything regarding different kind of media channels you used?
Yeah, so we use a multitude of channels, but I guess what I would say is something that has been really useful for us, and that we've seen some success from, is actually using past events and using that as the promotion tool. So, for example, if we had, a 10-year-old donate their birthday party to Parkinson's, we would feature them in the next set of emails or in our newsletter, to sort of show other kids, hey, I can do that too. And same goes for all other events. So using the success that you already have, your past events, and repackaging that as your promotion, I think would be what I would suggest.
That's awesome. All right. What about one more question? Just time for one more question. For DIY events, do you offer to connect your org's volunteer-based resources to assist them? Do you involve volunteers in the DIY campaigns at all?
So it's Amanda here. If we have, if our event organizers request volunteers, we definitely do what we can to help fulfill that. We do have offices across the country, so in as many cases as we can, we try to send a staff person to some of these events. And volunteers if we can. But of course, just given the nature of the geography of Canada, we can't always do that. But we do try where we can.
That's great.
Yeah, we've also, we had a gal that her family was in Rwanda. They were working with us. And when she came back, they came to volunteer at the Lake to Lake Ride, which was our primary peer-to-peer event. But she's like, why can't we do this for kids? In the Lower Mainland and Vancouver area. So she actually ran an event called Rachel's Ride for Rwanda for 5 years. That, as it started to gain, as she was talking about this idea, we're like, okay, well, how can we help her out? So some of our staff got involved in that. And then as she's gotten older and getting close to graduating, now she just doesn't have time to run it. She's the primary driver of the event, but team came around her to help pull that off as well. So in that particular instance, we did have staff involved, and obviously there's a ton of volunteers with having a bike ride, again, a much shorter one. So we have at times had to step in. Yeah.
Terrific. Well, Thank you so much. We're at the top of the hour here, so we're going to wrap it up, but feel free to connect with me, Mark at CathexisPartners.com with any other questions. Check out our website for resources. But I really want to thank Amanda, Jayson, and Beth for your time and your thoughts and your experience today. It's been awesome to hear from you, and thank you for everybody attending today, and have a great day.